Hi, everyone. Thanks for joining today's session. So we're going to talk today about apprenticeships. I'm going to specifically focus in on our trans apprenticeship program, but I want to start us in a little bit of basis of understanding about apprenticeships. So first, I'll start with an introduction. Hi, I'm Cortland Russell. I use he, him, his pronouns. I am the US Pride ERG co-lead at Accenture. I'm also the Atlanta local market lead, so shout out to my Georgia people. I see some folks in the front row who I was saying hello to. And you are going to get an opportunity to hear from a few of our apprentices today. I am not one of our apprentices, but I felt like we can't have a conversation about a program that impacts people without having the voices of those people. While they couldn't be here today because of most of our apprentices are actually outside of the US, at least as a part of our trans apprenticeship programs. They still are very aware that we're having this conversation today, and I hope that some of them are joining us online where time zones permit, because we're going to talk about apprenticeship programs in geographies all around the world. I want to start by just baselining what it is that I hope that you gain from today's session. And I know you have lots of opportunities to choose what sessions you go to. So if I tell you what it is that I'm going to talk about and you're like, yeah, that's not at all what I want to learn about, I am not going to be offended at all if you say, I'm going to go to a different session. That's totally fine. So I want you to learn about our apprenticeship approaches. I think we have a unique approach to apprenticeships. Those approaches vary by country that we're going to talk about today. And I want you to learn a little bit about them. I hope that you can understand the benefits of apprenticeships. This might be a completely new hiring model for some of you who are in the room and online. And I hope you can understand, what you could gain from those models. I want you to hear from our Accenture apprentices themselves, have some first steps on how you might replicate the programs that we've created in your own organizations. I know that not everybody here is going to be the people who are making decisions about talent strategy and your recruitment strategy, but hopefully you'll get some steps for how you take those conversations forward. And then I want to offer our partnership in your expansion. And I'll talk about, especially for those of you who are based in North America, how you can partner with Accenture in extending and expanding your own apprenticeship programs. How does that sound? Thumbs up? Awesome. Perfect. So I'll give a little context on Accenture because we're not necessarily a household name. We're not a consumer-facing brand, if you will, but you might have heard of us. Accenture is a 720,000 person company. We operate in 120 countries. So that is massive beyond massive, right? It's hard to know even all of the things that are happening within Accenture, even within our Pride networks, because we are such a large organization. Today, I'm going to focus on a few of our apprenticeship programs, and specifically, I'm going to talk about programs that exist in North America, Argentina, India, and the Philippines, which those countries combined account for 67% of our overall workforce, right? So it's a huge chunk of our people. While they're spread out between 120 different countries, at least 2/3 of the people in our workforce sit between the countries that we'll talk about today. Accenture is also kind of the fullest of the full-service consulting firms. So if you are represented here at O&EQUAL, we probably work with organizations within the industries that you represent. We're in 40+ industries. Majority of our workforce, and this is particularly important for our apprenticeship programs, a majority of our workforce is focused in technology and operations, and those areas are where our apprentices primarily work as well. Since we're at an LGBTQ+ conference, I want to talk about our Pride Network. We do have Pride networks in 45 countries and 120,000 plus registered allies. So those are folks who have gone on to our ally portal and have said, yes, I am an LGBTQ ally and I want to be recognized as such. So very large portion of our population, but still plenty more people in those 720,000 who we want to go in, not just push the button to be an ally, but actually show up and be an ally. And we hope that programs like this apprenticeship program help to offer an opportunity for folks to engage as an ally. We have same-sex partner benefits in all countries where legally allowed, and trans health benefits in 17 countries and growing. And I think that's important to note because we're on a journey, right? We are not perfect in everything that we do, and we are continuously trying to improve where we can and expand benefits and programs to all geographies and all of our people around the world. I'll preface the video really quickly before I show it. So I told you that most of our apprentices are helping to support our organization in technology and operations. That even seems really broad, and you might not have any idea of what that means from a technology standpoint. So I'm going to show you just a quick reel that's based on the ABCs of some of the technologies where Accenture is operating so that you get a better sense of what that means.
I'm saving the coral reefs using underwater AI.
I'm helping food get to those in need, fast.
I am reducing waste in the global fashion industry.
I'm helping make live theatre more accessible for the hearing impaired.
I'm securing our future.
I'm disrupting the world with quantum computing.
So I know that video, for those of you who are in the room, the volume was kind of low. So if you want to watch that video, it's available on our YouTube channel. That's where I got the video as well. But I just wanted to give you some sense of what some of our people are doing and what some of the apprentices who we'll talk about today, what they're doing. Now, what is an apprenticeship? An apprenticeship for us is really supposed to be a program that helps folks to enter into full-time employment with Accenture. We are looking for somebody who might not fit our traditional talent acquisition categories, right? A lot of our folks who we've recruited, especially in North America, for many, many years, you needed to have a 4-year college degree in order to even be considered for to be a candidate in a program. And that's really limiting, especially when we think about the statistics around, workforce empowerment and education and opportunity. Those are not spread evenly across our entire LGBTQ+ community. And especially when we look outside of North America and think about our global marketplace, those opportunities are certainly not spread and distributed evenly across all of our people. So we want to have an opportunity to have this additional pipeline for folks to come into the organization. It is something where we want to pay a living wage, so this is not an unpaid internship where someone has to try to balance all of the other things that are happening in their life and try to find additional employment to be able to pay for the things that they need to pay for on a regular basis. It's an opportunity to get a living wage through this apprenticeship program. And ultimately, the goal, like I said, is to convert to full-time employment. Some of our apprentices, many of our apprentices, I'll talk a little bit about how we're doing in terms of conversion from the apprentice program into full-time employment with us. But some of the apprentices actually go off to other organizations because they've gotten an opportunity through this program with Accenture to get an additional name, an opportunity on their resume that leads to opening doors in other organizations that might not have apprentice programs. We've found over the many years that we've been holding having these apprentice programs that our apprentices are highly productive, highly motivated, and Also, when we're thinking about the dollars and cents of corporations, our apprentices are far less likely to leave the organization than from any of our other recruiting sources, right? Folks are thankful for an opportunity and tend to have a higher degree of loyalty because of having received that opportunity. It also allows us to connect with a more diverse pool of candidates. We're going to focus specifically on trans candidates today, but our apprentice programs focus on people with disabilities, folks from different racial and ethnic diversity backgrounds, women, etc. Lots of different types of diverse candidates come through these apprenticeship programs. We want to be able to promote economic opportunity as well, right? We have ESG goals as an organization, and so we're not just doing this to get the ROI, we're also doing this because we really want to be the change in our communities where we're making impact. We want to create profits with purpose, and so we want to have an opportunity to really tackle a challenge that we think corporations have unique ability to have an impact in. And we want to build deeper relationships. We want to build deeper relationships with our clients and our apprenticeship program, talking about this program with our clients, many of whom are in the room currently. Talking about this program allows us to have a deeper relationship and to further our connection into our community, right? We have to go and partner with NGOs and other organizations out in our community to find this diverse talent. And it's really important to have those community relationships when you go out and try to find that talent. So I know that you all want to walk away with some kind of tangibles of what this might mean for your organization. And so I won't talk through all of the sample roles, but we've developed a list across industries of where we think apprentices could have a real strong impact. And for those of you who are taking pictures of the slides, know that I have uploaded the slide deck already onto the app. So you will have access to this whole slide deck, except for the videos, because I put it as a PDF, so you won't have access to those, but you'll have access to all of the slides after today's presentation so that you can take this information and go have conversations with your folks in talent acquisition and other places. And we've had some great success. I'll talk a little bit about our North America program. That's the program I'm most familiar with because it is the program that I work with on a regular basis in my role as our local market lead for Atlanta. We've had literally hundreds of apprentices come through this program since its inception. We started the program in 2016 in North America, and we have made a public commitment that apprentices will account for 20% of our entry-level hiring in North America. And this year, we met that commitment. We exceeded that commitment, actually, and apprentices were more than 20% of our entry-level new hires. That's huge for an organization that just a few years ago was not recruiting from this kind of candidate pool at all. There were no people who were coming in into our technology and operations workforces who didn't have a four-year college degree. And a hallmark of our North America apprenticeship program is that you cannot have a four-year college degree. If you have a four-year college degree in any field, you don't actually qualify to come into our apprenticeship program. So it's a pipeline that's exclusively reserved for a candidate pool that is substantially more diverse and especially more diverse when it comes to LGBTQ identity because of the way that education is not equally distributed even in North America. So I want to talk a little bit about our India Inclusive Internship Program, and I'm going to look at a few notes as I do that because, like I said, I'm more familiar with our North America program, but I think our India program is one of the most successful programs when it comes to specifically hiring trans candidates. So we have the India Inclusive Internship Program, and then a partner program with that, which is called the Ramba. In English, that Ramba means beginning or starting point. Those programs were started in 2019, and that's particularly important, and I'll talk about why 2019 is important and why we started then, and is managed by our technology business and our inclusion and diversity team in India. So I'm sharing those details because if you're thinking about who you might need to go talk to, those are the people who we've worked with to get these programs started. In particular, why I say 2019 is important is because India passed legislation in 2019 called the Transgender Persons Protections of Rights Act. And essentially that act encouraged institutional spaces like family, workplace, education, and healthcare to provide equal opportunity for trans and non-binary people. There wasn't a whole lot of specific guidance about how that might come about or any kind of teeth if you didn't do that, but it was a call from the government to say, we want you to do things in institutional spaces. And our inclusion and diversity team and our technology business saw that as an opportunity and an open door where they didn't feel like they had that open door and acceptance from the government to be able to do a program like this. They felt like that door had been swung wide open as a part of the passing of that act. Specifically, the things that were gaps and difficult about starting this program was skills gaps and also language proficiency gaps. We were working in an environment where we needed highly technical people, but with populations that might not have those technology skills. And so we had to rethink the way that we thought about how we train and support our people in this program, because they weren't coming ready-made with all of the skills that we needed them to have. And so to address these issues, these programs which aim to build a skilled talent of trans candidates, we started this 4 to 6 month program that's a training program that'll show up here in just a minute of what that timeline looks like for 4 to 6 months. And initially we started with trans candidates and persons with disabilities candidates. And this program was so successful in its first year that it was expanded to other diverse segments, including other diverse populations and women in lower economic strata. So far, we've had 700 participants come through this program in the past 3 years, with an 86% higher rate for those who completed the program. And if you're thinking, wow, we have a really big business in India and I would love to, partner and do some things in India, the 2 organizations that we worked with in India were Periphery and Tweet, which are both our sourcing partners for bringing in these trans candidates into this program. I'm giving you away all the secrets today, so hopefully you can take all of them. I want you to have an opportunity to hear from some folks who are part of our India Inclusive Internship Program. Now, keep in mind that not all of the folks who you're going to see are trans candidates because, like I said, our India Inclusive Internship Program has expanded to other diverse populations as well, but I want to have an opportunity for them to speak for themselves. And we're good on volume? Yep. Awesome.
Hi guys, my name is Astha Gupta. I'm an intern at Inclusive Internship Program at Accenture for CMGLN team. My overall experience with Accenture is wonderful because I feel recognized like everyone else. I feel that all the team members are very helpful. You will get help whenever you ask for. Whenever I get up the next day, I feel accomplished. I feel that I'm going to learn something new today. Let it be from anyone, let it be from anyone inside the team or outside the team. And the work ethics are wonderful. So my all-over experience with Accenture is wonderful. And thank you for letting me a part of such a wonderful organization. Thank you.
Hello everyone, my name is Siraswin Suri and I have joined Accenture as an intern under the Internship Inclusive Program. The best part about Accenture that I found during these months of my internship is the way that we we approach seniors. So as such, there is no particular hierarchy to approach any kind of senior, and whenever you need any sort of help, they are always a call away. And I would also like to thank Accenture for being a great proponent of a perfect work-life balance culture. So thank you, Accenture.
Hello, my name is Rohan Kumar Panda. I have joined Accenture as an intern under Inclusive Internship Program since June 2022. I love to learn, explore, and hone new skills, and Accenture gives me everything I want. The most interesting part is the cutting-edge technologies that Accenture uses for its services. I'm lucky to be part of this organization where every day is a day when I learn something new and exciting. This has been the best 3 months of my life, and there is more to come. Thank you.
Give a round of applause. As you can probably imagine, being asked to film a video that might be shared across the company as somebody who's a part of this program is a very nerve-wracking experience. So if you're seeing some nervous energy from them, trust me, I would have some nervous energy if I was in their position as well. But those are just the stories of 3 of our interns who are part of this India Inclusive Internship Program. And really, like I said, there's 697 other stories that we could share as a part of that program as well. So I told you that I would share a little bit about the onboarding journey. So this is a 4 to 6 month program in India. I keep mentioning where it's based because admittedly, each of these programs has kind of grown up organically from the talent acquisition leaders and the inclusion and diversity teams within each of these geographies. And it wasn't until we started sharing a lot of preparing for this presentation that some of those folks in various countries hadn't had an opportunity to know that there were other people doing the same things, right? And so one of the takeaways that we learned from preparing for today's session is we need to do a better job of sharing those best practices and learning. So I'm going to focus in on India's program. We start with a screening interview just to help candidates understand the program and what it is that we're trying to do and confirm their participation. We start with a launch of our pre-launch activities with our teams on the ground. So many of these teams that these candidates are going to be going and working for, they may never have had a trans person who was a part of their team. And so we do some inclusion sensitization training with the teams so that they know a little bit more about the person who's going to be on the other end of this internship program. We want to make sure that those folks who are going to be with them day to day give an excellent experience to that person. We do new joiner orientation and a meet and greet with the interns and their team. And then the rest of the time is focused on experiential learning, structured learning from our technology organization, consistent performance evaluation, receiving real-time feedback and setting priorities with the candidates as they go through this program, just like we would with any of the rest of our workforce. And finally, there is a final certification and closure of the program where that person, based on their past performance and feedback from their team, is given an opportunity to either continue with Accenture, which they can choose to accept or decline that offer, because some of them do get even better offers maybe from other places, which is awesome, or if their performance wasn't in a good place, have an opportunity to have conversations about why we're not offering that opportunity. So as you're thinking about starting one of these programs, there's really 3 things that you should be thinking about. What does the talent need, right? What do you need from a talent perspective? That's why I shared the roles of some prospective roles that apprentices could fill. Do you have a supportive environment? Is your local leadership aligned? That is huge in the success of these programs. It is oftentimes, I was talking with our India team, and the decision to start this inclusive internship program went all the way to the country managing director for India to make the decision of yes or no, were we going to move forward with this new way of recruiting talent. And by getting in that buy-in from the senior most leadership within that country, all of the other teams that needed to support, whether it be our learning teams or talent acquisition or the teams that we're going to be staffing and offering opportunities for apprentices, all of those teams were bought in because their senior most leadership was bought into the program. Are there priority locations where the program would be more effective? For us in North America, I'll show you the cities where we've expanded apprenticeship networks. Some cities, our apprenticeship program works really well because we have the scale of staff to be able to support the needs of our apprentices. In other cities, we just don't have the scale to be able to do these programs effectively. So deciding which locations you're going to do this program in and giving opportunities for folks to have some of that in-person collaboration. I know that's going out of style, in-person collaboration, but when you have a program that's focused on training and developing folks who are starting where our apprentices are starting, that in-person collaboration actually does make a world of difference in their success in the program. And do you have strong partners? Do you have organizations that you can go and work with, NGOs and talent recruitment organizations, where you can find the candidates that you need for your programs? And where you have all three of those combined, that's really where you have a successful apprenticeship program. So thinking about the model, what it is that you need to do when you're thinking about, you're going to your organization and you say, well, how do we even get started, right? Great, you heard this presentation at a conference, that's awesome. We have no idea how to even fit this into our recruitment model. It's gonna be 3 years before we can do anything, right? We've all heard the excuses that come from making big changes in an organization. And so hopefully these steps help you to cut through some of that. So define the priorities and confirm a vision with your leadership, right? So that's at the senior most level. That might involve getting network sponsors engaged in an opportunity, and it's probably going to involve getting kind of your senior most leaders who are going to be the decision makers about where you go and do talent acquisition and what your recruitment processes might look like. Research existing models. You're welcome to take ours as a point of research, and I'll share with you some information that we've actually published, white papers and what have you, out in the just on the internet, so that you can access those things that are not behind walls. Identify what priorities, so those roles and locations that you target for apprenticeships. What are your actual talent demands? You want to be filling actual talent demands. The point of this program is not to just create new demand where it didn't exist previously, right? You are trying to fit in a new way of looking at talent acquisition from a diverse lens into existing talent gaps and talent needs. And ultimately, you're trying to fill that demand through skills-based on-the-job learning and training, right? You're not going to find apprentices that are going to come ready to go and hit the ground running and driving client value is what we say, driving client value on day one. You're going to have to teach and mentor and apprentice the folks who come through any of these programs. The third step is probably the most crucial when it comes to execution of making things happen. Figuring out where you're going to source, defining your interview process. The interview process that you give to your current entry-level candidates might not work for apprentice candidates, right? It might be asking the wrong questions. You might be doing, we often will sometimes do case interviews for our entry-level talent, right? That's not going to fit for our apprentice candidates. Figure out your compensation model and make sure your compensation model is supplying a living wage commensurate to the industry that you are recruiting candidates into, right? We're not trying to bring folks into poverty into our organizations. Define the type and length of training, the support model, and what happens when a candidate goes through the apprenticeship program. It's not just enough to think about the apprenticeship program. You have to think about where do they fit into the rest of your talent strategy after they come through this program. So you're not just having, in the North America, it's a year-long experience. At the end of that year-long experience, our apprentices go into our development programs, which is where our traditional entry-level talent starts their journey, right? So they then filter through the rest of our talent model because they are plugging into something that's pre-built in our case. And then what does feedback look like? You're going to have employee relations issues. You're going to have, issues. You're going to have challenges with candidates. You're going to have that with all candidates, but you might especially have that with candidates who might be coming from a different socioeconomic background than most of the rest of your candidates. So you might have to think about childcare differently. You might have to think about transportation. You might have to think about those unexpected things that come up when you're working with a more diverse population that might not be as affluent as the rest of your population. The way that you're supporting your people today may not work for the candidates that you're bringing in tomorrow. And finally, you need to scale, right? You all gave the clap for 700 people coming through our inclusive internship program in India. The reason why that's impressive is because we've scaled, right? If you're only doing this for 5 people a year, it might not be a program that's sustainable long-term because that's probably dependent on a couple of people who are very passionate pushing this through. But if you scale a program where it's actually a part of your business rhythm as an organization, you have much more likelihood that the program will continue, be successful, and will be a part of your organization in the future. So speaking of other parts of our organization, I do want to talk about our Argentina program. It is a considerably smaller program in comparison to our India program, but it is another way that another part of our business has stepped up and started the journey. So our Argentina Apprentice program started in 2016. It's run and managed by our corporate citizenship team, so think of that like corporate social responsibility team. They work with nonprofits and NGOs out in the community. It was initially proposed by the Argentina Inclusion and Diversity team as a way of providing economic opportunity, again, for persons with disabilities, but was later expanded to include women and the transgender community. The program has had 1 to 3 transgender people per year since its inception and has had a 60% higher rate. So like I said, it's a much smaller program, but still a very successful rate when it comes to hiring candidates. And the NGOs that we work with in Argentina, for those of you who have an Argentina presence, is Transistimas and Trans-TI. So those are our 2 recruiting partners that we work with to bring in those candidates every year. And I'd like for you to have an opportunity to hear from another one of our apprentice candidates. I'm going to show another video, if that's all right, of one of our folks who's a part of this apprenticeship program in Argentina.
Hello everyone, and happy Pride. My name is Dan. I'm from Argentina, and my pronouns are he, him, his. Here we celebrate Pride in November, but I'm happy to celebrate from the distance with you today. Today I'm going to tell you a bit about my experience joining Accenture through the Apprentice program for transgender people. I'm a part of employee services as an HR agent, and I joined Accenture 9 months ago as a contractor through the Diversity and Inclusion program, which links different talents with Accenture. They sort of guide you through the process, and if needed, they can offer and provide you trainings to reinforce your soft skills, to fulfill your role and develop your career. In my case, they offer information about anything related to inclusion, such as the Pride Council in Argentina that holds monthly calls with coffee breaks and information and events, and the championship on mental health. We have regular calls to catch up, so I could give my feedback on how I felt on the project and with my teammates about my experience, and to check if there was anything to improve. I felt super supported through the process. And later on, they confirmed that I will become a regular employee, a full-time employee. So I fully joined Accenture on March this year. Very happy about that. While joining Accenture, I was extremely nervous and afraid. I never imagined joining such a big company with so many people, so many different people. And trying to fit in a group, I was really anxious about it. But soon after I joined my project and meeting my teammates, I realized that even if we had a lot of differences, we also had a lot in common. I feel totally thankful for my team leads and my teammates from the beginning, because they are always happy to help and they always encourage me to learn, to train, and to grow, to create my own path. And they are always encouraging me to learn from day one. I think that from the first interview, my team leads always asked me what I expected from the company and what I wanted to do. They are also open to learn as well. I remember that we had a call on inclusion and diversity, and after the call, and I saw a few teammates using the information that they received about using pronouns and making everyone feel included on the conversations. And maybe it's a bit a small step, but for me it was something amazing, because feeling included it's very important for us, for everyone. Some of my teammates also take part in the Pride Council discussions and the coffee breaks, and they also share the information, invite the rest of the team when there is a particular topic that it could be interesting to them as well. I feel thankful because I know that it's not easy to get along with everyone, as there are a lot of people and we have a lot of differences, but somehow I did, and that's because they are in our team, not only because they are great professionals, but also because they are amazing human beings. We share a lot of values there. In my team, I found a place where I am recognized by my teammates and my leads, and a place where I can have my own voice and ideas, regardless when did I join Accenture or what level I am, or in my case, regardless my gender and my gender identity. I feel secure, respected, recognized, and truly happy to be part of the Accenture family. Thank you for listening to my experience, and thanks to all the team working on this presentation for letting me share my story and take part of the event. And again, have a happy Pride Month.
So Dan shared his story in a presentation that was shared with tens of thousands of people. We're watching Dan live, and including many of the folks in our C-suite were watching that. So again, another high-stress opportunity to share your story, but one where I hope you can see the authenticity with which Dan's able to come to work on a day-to-day basis, in part because of this apprenticeship program. So I want to shift a little bit and talk about how we've expanded and how we can be a partner to you in the room. So we started with an apprenticeship program, which we've consistently expanded, especially in North America. Like I said, 20% of our entry-level workforce comes from this apprenticeship program now. And we turned our focus to an external market focus with apprenticeship networks, starting with the first apprenticeship network that we launched in 2017 in Chicago. And these apprenticeship networks are our way of going out into the community and getting especially senior business leaders to sign on to the idea of apprenticeships as a source for recruiting talent. We know that if those senior leaders are bought in, as I shared, then the rest of the steps become considerably easier. So we've used these apprenticeship networks to pull in nonprofit partners, other NGOs, government leaders, and corporate leaders into a space where we can have conversation about how we go on this apprenticeship journey together. And I shared those four organization types. So where we started in 2017 with the launch of the Chicago Apprenticeship Network. We now have in 2022 8 active networks: Chicago, Detroit, Washington, D.C., Houston, Massachusetts, Minnesota, Philadelphia, and Northern California are the 8 cities where we've launched those apprenticeship networks. 130 employers are participating in those networks across those 8 cities, with a total commitment of 2,000 plus apprentices across all of those organizations. And we are supporting the New York Jobs CEO Council and 110 in New York, where they had existing things that we didn't need to stand up something brand new. We could plug into and bring our experience into something that was already existing. And our total apprenticeship commitments, 30, are set to 10,000 apprentices across all of those organizations. So big round of applause to those folks who are already doing the work. Now we are going to move to questions here in just a minute. And Jen, would you mind standing up and showing the folks in the room who you are? So Jen is our awesome question moderator. So if you have a question in the room, Jen can come to you and they will give you the mic so that you can share your questions, and folks who are online can hear those questions as well. And then Jen, I think you also have been collecting questions for those folks who are online. So if you're online and you haven't submitted a question, please make sure that you're putting it in so that Jen can share those with me as well. I just wanted to, one last point, this bridging the gap between talent and opportunity is one of those white papers that I shared that I would make sure that you all have access to. If you just Google the title, and I did this beforehand because I wasn't sure if you all were going to be able to easily access it, but if you Google bridging the gap between talent and opportunity, it is the first thing that shows up. And is available as a white paper for you all to download. It's something that we built in collaboration with several other organizations that have vastly different talent models than we do at Accenture, because we know that our talent model isn't going to be a copy and paste perfect fit for all of you. So hopefully you can learn something if you want to get that deeper level of knowledge from some of the white paper that we did. So, questions. Do we have any online? Jen, do you want to start with one there, or do you want to start with one in the room?
Sure. Thanks so much, Cortland, and thanks for a great presentation so far. First question from our online audience. Do you have advice or structure for developing inclusion programs for existing teams who will be working with apprentices?
We do. I don't know that I can verbalize all of those programs, but I think through the programs that you're going to hear throughout the conference, we do everything from the basics of kind of LGBTQ and Trans 101 sessions with teams, share our company's stance when it comes to policy and practice as to how those trainings should be applied. So when we have a question about, restrooms and dress code and pronouns and all the things that all of us in the room kind of build policy around, it's not just saying, here's the policy. It's saying, here's the policy, here's the expectations, we'll be checking in. We are sharing these policies also with the apprentice who's coming in so they know what to expect, and they have a conduit outside of their team to raise issues to. So if they're saying, you told me all these great things, but I keep saying my pronouns and nobody's respecting them, we want to be there as a team to support that individual so that they're not, having to, work in an environment where they're not being respected. I know that's not super specific, but I think it's probably a much bigger answer than I can answer up here.
Thank you so much. My name is Rodolfo from JP Morgan Chase from Argentina, pronouns he, him, his. So thank you for the presentation, super useful. I have a question regarding if the Apprentice program involves maybe language training for non-English speaking countries, and if there's an age range. Thank you.
Yeah. Our apprentice programs vary geography to geography, but specifically in Argentina, one of the things that we did talk about is language barriers can be a challenge. When language is a significant barrier, what we frequently do is we will pair an apprentice with a program or a project that's happening within country, right? So our teams in Argentina might be supporting our business in another part of the world where the business language has to be English for those two teams to be able to communicate effectively with each other. But we also, our business allows us to have a number of programs where they can support a local client in Argentina where the business language is Spanish, and therefore there is not a language barrier. So as opposed to trying to offer, English classes, which we will sometimes partner with nonprofits who offer those services if somebody does want to move into a role where they might be supporting globally, we still offer opportunity within language for folks to be able to, still have employment.
Another online question. How did you specifically source transgender and non-binary candidates, and what challenges were there that was specific to trans and non-binary candidates?
So in order to source trans and non-binary candidates in particular, we worked with NGO partners where they were already serving the trans and non-binary community. They had those relationships. We wanted to get connected with folks. And so we went to different NGO partners and said, this is kind of what we want to do. This is what we've done in other places. Would you be willing to partner with us on this? And sometimes the answer was no. Sometimes it was, hey, this is a great opportunity, but this is not what we do as an organization. It's not a good fit for us. And so we needed to go to several different partners in order to find a partner who said, yes, employment opportunity is a big part of what we do as an organization. We would be happy to, pair one of our staff members with one of your staff members. And in many cases, because we might be the first organization that might have come to them and asked for this particular type of partnership, it was a way of building a template that then they could go use with other partners. And so finding those NGOs that have those existing relationships, it was critical in terms of finding the trans talent. Issues specific to the trans community, I think are issues that almost all trans employees face, in that, the questions, again, about restrooms and pronouns and, being your authentic self and your gender expression and what have you, those same issues exist for our apprentice candidates. And so that's why we do specific targeted training for teams where they are going to have a trans apprentice so that they can, have some of those basics in hand. And we help to kind of hopefully resolve issues before they start.
Hi. So I actually had that same question, but I want to build a little bit upon it. Yeah. On having these apprentice programs in different countries, have you found any differences in trying to find that trans talent in these countries? Is there a different approach to it?
Yeah, there are very different approaches, admittedly. I mean, each one of these programs, like I said, they've kind of grown up organically, and we are now, as a result of this presentation in some ways, having more conversations about how we learn lessons from each other. I would say, actually, the programs in, I didn't specifically talk about our program in the Philippines, but we do have programs in Argentina, the Philippines, and India that are specifically focused on including trans candidates, and those programs, each of them has come at those conversations differently in how they started their approaches with the NGOs. So I don't know that there's like a universal answer I can give you and kind of get into each of the specifics, but I'd be happy to, if you have questions about a particular geography and how we worked with ones in a particular place, I'm happy to have that conversation too outside of this.
Okay. First, thank you for this amazing presentation. My question is, how that was first approached to your executives to be able to convince them to support this idea?
Yeah, so in India, the government passing that legislation triggered a conversation about how would Accenture respond to the legislation. So that conversation was triggered by an external force, right? Whereas the conversation in North America was something where we knew that we were diverting a lot of talent away from our traditional pipelines, and we were saying, hey, you don't have the college degree, or don't have the GPA, or what have you. We can't have a conversation with you, right? Our recruiters knew that those conversations were happening, and they shared that with their leadership. Hey, this keeps happening. We keep having these conversations. What are we going to do, right? And for us, it was also realizing that we needed to continue to diversify the base level of our organization, the newest joiners in our organization. We needed more diversity in those ranks. We needed folks who were coming in at a different level than our college grads were coming in. We needed folks who were willing to do a large portion of our technology and operations work, which admittedly might not always be the most glamorous and flashy. That if you have a college grad, they might say, well, I really don't want to do that type of work, right? And so we had a talent gap, a talent demand that necessitated us creating a model that fit that talent demand, right? And that's where it goes back to kind of what I was talking about. You can't just create artificial demand and hope that it works for a program. You have to actually have a need within your organization. And I would argue that most large organizations do have that need, whether they realize it or not.
Thank you so much for the very useful presentation. Speaking more from an NGO perspective, what would you say, other than the amount of people, amount of trans people specifically, that we could help you reach? What are other things that would make an NGO or a nonprofit particularly attractive for this kind of partnership?
Yeah. I think connection with other services in particular, right? So I talked about the issues that you might have that are auxiliary issues outside of employment, outside of a paycheck, that would impact a person's ability to find success in employment. We have partnered in a number of cases. There's an example of I'll use an example from Georgia because I'm from Georgia, but we partnered with a learning partner, right? Somebody who was providing training. They partnered with the United Way of North Georgia to provide additional services and case management. And then we were the third leg of that stool, providing employment and a paycheck. And so an NGO that can help us draw those lines between not just the learning and the training and the skilling, because that might be part of it, like some pre-learning, some pre-training, some pre-skilling, but case management and trying to help support the different way that person might have to think about finances and money management. A paycheck, when you have not been making a significant amount of money, if you suddenly are making $50,000 a year, that can be life-altering in good ways and in bad ways. And you might have other challenges that crop up that you might not be prepared for if you've never made that level of a salary before. So, when we think about candidates who are going to come into these programs, you have to think about the whole person, not just, their performance and, are they going through their training and, all that kind of stuff.
Loved it, Cortland. This is great. Thank you.
Thank you.
I actually have 3 questions very quickly. First of all, you mentioned that the programs were between 4 to 6 months. So I want to know, does that mean that the company is constantly hiring and looking on a rolling basis? And the second one was, you mentioned about certification and then a job offer. Can a person be certified and not receive a job offer, or is that automatic? And then the third one was, if you could talk about some barriers for attaining and connecting with networks, particularly in the U.S.?
Okay, so I'm going to try to take those one at a time. Can you leave the mic only because I'm going to forget all like the third question by the time I'm done answering the first one. On the first question, 4 to 6 month program. So the India program is 4 to 6 months. The Argentina program is 6 months. Our apprenticeship program in North America is a year-long program. So they vary in length depending on the geography and the needs of the business and what's included in that training program.
Certification and job offer.
Yep. So certification and job offer. Depending on the program, you may actually walk out with an industry certification that then can be used in other places. So part of your training might be getting some cloud certifications or what have you. In those cases, yes, that certification can easily be used outside of Accenture and can be used in other places. Not all of our apprenticeship programs come with that external accreditation as a part of the program. And so in those cases, you can still say you had an apprenticeship through Accenture. For companies that are already kind of bought in and they're like, great, we don't have to spend the time on the apprenticeship part because you did it with another organization, it doesn't really matter in some cases that whether they have that external certification or not. And the third question?
Barriers that you have found trying to be in network in U.S.
Yeah.
I did notice that Atlanta wasn't on the list.
Yeah, Atlanta is not on the list. Atlanta's a complicated one because there are a lot of different players who are all trying to do apprenticeships from lots of different angles. I could have a whole conversation with you about Atlanta as the local market lead and the complexities there. But I think in particular, our U.S. talent acquisition team has taken an approach that is not like targeting a specific population, right? They're casting a wide net of anybody who doesn't have a 4-year college degree, and that wide net happens to include a lot of trans and non-binary folks, a lot of LGBTQ plus folks, a lot of folks from diverse socioeconomic backgrounds, racial and ethnic diverse backgrounds, what have you. And so they haven't been specifically going to partners. And I think part of our goal as an ERG, speaking as one of the US Pride leads, is to make sure that as we expand these programs, that we are actually going and finding sourcing partners that are specific to the LGBTQ community, like they have done in other geographies. And part of what I didn't even know until Dan's presentation on our Global Pride kickoff this last year, that we had programs that were specifically focused on trans and non-binary recruiting because we don't collect sexual orientation and gender identity information in the same way in the US that we might in other parts of our business. So I think it's a gap, and I think it's something that we need to continue to work on. Yes.
Hi there. My question actually kind of revolves around the post-apprenticeship experience, because I know that you mentioned a lot about the sensitivity work that's done with teams that are receiving an apprentice. Yeah. If you have a candidate that receives a full-time offer, what's that onboarding experience like? And then the second part to this question is, we talk about talent attraction, but what about talent retention? Yeah. Are there any kind of follow-throughs from the apprenticeship that track that?
Yeah. So I think the building an inclusive culture where all of our people feel supported is something that is kind of continuous work, right? We have policies and practices in place to be able to encourage that inclusive culture, but sometimes it's not, right? Sometimes we fail. Sometimes folks aren't inclusive and they don't provide those safe environments. So we provide the same opportunities for our apprentices who come into full-time employment as we do all of our people. I don't know that it's a great answer, but it is what we're doing today, is providing those opportunities that if something is going wrong, then we are addressing that retroactively, and then providing proactive training where we have all of our trainings include LGBTQ inclusion as a part of them, right? So, there are scenarios in all of our mandatory ethics and compliance trainings that talk about people misgendering others and using incorrect pronouns and not respecting, someone's sexual orientation, what have you. And all of our people are required to go through those programs. So we have built things into our business to try to, answer those on a recurring basis. And then, sorry, your second question. Retention. So, like I mentioned, our apprentice candidates typically are retained at a significantly higher rate than any of our other pipelines because of the fact that we've offered opportunity where nobody else was really willing to offer opportunity. And so there is a degree of loyalty that's built in offering that opportunity and opening the door. I think typically what ends up happening is after somebody moves out of their apprentice program, they're well integrated and well connected within the organization. And so they are moving into our traditional talent pipelines and are thriving and succeeding and moving up through the organization. And in some cases, our HR team can lose track of where those folks have gone after a while because they're embedded into the organization and no longer need additional guidance and support beyond what all of our other employees need. And I think I am at time, so we're good? Okay. All right, if you have any other questions, feel free. I'm on the app for the conference, Cortland Russell. The presentation is in the materials, but thank you all for coming and appreciate it.